This is the Arabian Peninsula. On one side of the peninsula is the Arabian Sea, which connects to the Mediterranean Sea via the Red Sea. The Red Sea flows essentially between the peninsula and the African continent and empties into the Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal. On the other side of the peninsula, the Arabian Sea opens into the Gulf of Oman, which is further connected to the Persian Gulf. Between these two gulfs is a very narrow strip of water called the Strait of Hormuz. Three countries border this strait: Iran, Oman, and the United Arab Emirates. Every day, the world's largest ships transport countless quantities of oil. We'll discuss this in more detail shortly. Given its narrow width and the enormous volume of oil passing through it, the Strait of Hormuz is the most important choke point for oil transport in the world. To get an idea of the quantity of oil and energy products passing through this strait, consider these numbers. In 2024, an average of approximately 20 million barrels of oil and other petroleum liquids passed through this strait daily. Each barrel weighs approximately 169 liters. That is, a total of more than 3 billion liters per day. In other words, we can fill about 1,300 Olympic swimming pools every day with this oil. About one quarter of the total oil transported by sea across the world passes through this strait, along with about one-fifth of the world's traded natural gas. The Strait of Hormuz is only 39 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. Because of this, ships passing through it have to operate within fixed shipping lanes. But despite being so narrow, this strait is so deep that it is one of the world's deepest. Even the largest ships can pass through it with ease. Large ships exiting the Persian Gulf via the Strait of Hormuz must follow a carefully planned route. The first shipping lane begins in Iranian territorial waters. This lane passes between three islands that are currently under Iranian control, but the UAE also claims them. Ships then must enter Oman's territorial waters to cross the narrowest part of the strait. There are other shipping lanes that take ships back through Iranian waters. We discussed how the Persian Gulf is connected to the Mediterranean through the Strait of Hormuz, but interestingly, in 2024, approximately 84% of the crude oil passing through the strait was headed in the opposite direction, toward Asia. And most of that oil reached just 5 countries: China, India, Japan, Singapore, and South Korea. To reach these major markets in East Asia, oil tankers typically have to pass through another important oil choke point, Malacca, which we may discuss in another video. The Strait of Hormuz is narrow, so narrow that it lies entirely within the territorial waters of its bordering countries. This means that any incident in this area could halt all transit and, in the worst case, could even lead to direct conflict between the countries. As you may know, the US and Israel jointly attacked Iran and killed Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. This led Iran to choke the Strait of Hormuz and began attacking ships passing through it. Such incidents pose a direct threat to the strait's stability and further escalate tensions between bordering countries. Now that we understand how important the Strait of Hormuz is to global oil trade, it's possible to imagine how devastating even the slightest disruption to its oil supply would be for the countries that depend on it and for those that sell it to fuel their economies. So, the question is, are oil-buying countries trying to reduce their dependence on foreign oil? Apart from this, what other steps have oil-producing countries taken to protect the stability of the Strait of Hormuz from any threat? In fact, only Saudi Arabia and the UAE can ship from ports outside the Persian Gulf and have pipelines to transport oil to those ports. This means that both can bypass the Strait of Hormuz completely. Saudi Arabia has an east-west pipeline that can transport up to 5 million barrels daily to its ports on the Red Sea, although this is usually less than this. Transportation takes place. There is also a natural gas pipeline capable of transporting 300,000 barrels of gas daily. The UAE has the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline, which transports oil directly to the Gulf of Oman. Its capacity is 1.5 million barrels per day, but it typically transports less than this. There are other pipelines, but most are smaller and cross international boundaries. Therefore, due to recent conflicts and political differences between countries, their use has almost ceased. What does the future hold for Hormuz? This is a very complex question, and perhaps I cannot fully answer it. As we have learned, the region's geography further exacerbates this state's vulnerability, especially since there are no viable alternative shipping routes available. However, it's also important to recognize that the state lies entirely within the territories of several countries. This means that the region's politics directly affect its stability. The Strait of Hormuz will remain one of the world's most important shipping routes in the future.